Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Grand Slam Secret War Journal. This is week 2, which I just did week 1. We're all in the same sitting, so I'm a little behind. So we're gonna get going. There's a lot of books this week. Boom, MODOK Assassin. All right, so MODOK's a flying head. He has lasers and bombs. He's crazy. He's just kind of megalomaniacal. He's fighting other people. He's doing stuff. He's discovering things. Listen, I wasn't a huge fan of this book. It's just not my cup of tea. I know people talk about how cool MODOK is in Secret Avengers. It's hard for me to take MODOK seriously. It always has been. He's kind of like the butt end of most jokes. So, but if you like a funny book, that's what MODOK Assassin is. Inferno has so much promise. It was such a cool idea. I was really excited for Madeline Pryor being kind of like the dark, the fire witch kind of from like Game of Thrones, and just being like a part of the power play and the intrigue. And when you start reading it, it kind of turns into like 90s, turns into kind of 90s X-Men shenanigans. Basically, you have Colossus, and he's on a team, and every once a year he tries to go back and rescue Illyana, who's been trapped somewhere. It actually turns out she's in charge of this whole demon world, and the people of Inferno, the Madeline Pryor's involved in the whole thing. I didn't really get super excited about it. I want more intrigue out of this book. I was really hoping for some more cool, mystical, Skeeto, X-Men-ism going on. But a lot of it just seemed so 90s to me. And it's also hard to keep up because there's all these different X-Men characters in different worlds. So, I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan. But, some of you might like it. It's Inferno. It is an X-Men-oriented book. It's going to have characters. It's the most Colossus I've seen in a very long time. So, having said that, with the misgivings that Colossus does cool Colossus stuff. We got a couple. This is what this video is named after, Secret War Journal. That's Kate Bishop. Isn't she looking really snazzy? Kate's obviously featured in Hawkeye right now. And this is a book. This features 2 stories. The first story seems like a 1602. It's set in the 1602 world, which is very exciting. 1602, I love it. Some of the stories have never been really good that have followed it up, but this one might be really good. In this one, she's like a lady adventurer. She's doing stuff. She gets captured by a guy called the Punisher. That's right. So it's Frank Castle, but he's kind of looks a little goofy, and he's working for Doom. And he's like, "Hey, we caught you. Now you're going to be sent over the Shield." So this is a constant theme. It's like you step to this, and boom, you're thrown over the Shield. So that's the story that we have going on there. That's a story that's going to be continued in Siege #1, which isn't for another month or so. The second backup story was a crazy story about X-Men in the Age of Apocalypse, it seemed like, in Egyptia, and just crazy stuff. Mayhem ensues. Everybody dies. It's kind of its own self-contained story. It doesn't really continue anywhere. So this kind of reminds me of the Battle World book that came out last week that apparently I forgot to talk about. So this is a very similar type of style book where you kind of get updates of everything that's going on. All right, so this book is Secret Wars 2099. People like the 2099 stuff. It's a bunch of characters that got canceled. I don't really have too much to say about it. I like Peter David. I like his writing. I love him on X Factor. This I wasn't too jazzed about, but there's some crazy 2099 stuff going on. You have a very weird Avengers type team, and they're kind of in their own world where they're in the future. There's some it's mysterious stuff going on that'll hopefully reveal itself. Definitely reminds me of 2099 90s comic book schlock. Not a huge fan, but for those of you that like 2099, I think this is a book that you're going to appreciate. It's going to have characters that you've kind of missed for a while, and it's written by the mastermind who does 2099 stuff. So maybe I'm just grumpy and I don't like that kind of stuff. I don't know. Old Man Logan #1. Oh my goodness. So it kind of went from I was not liking a lot of these books, and then I read these 4 books. Old Man Logan, loved it. It's Brian Michael Bendis. I know I like a lot of the stuff that he does, but what I like about this is a classic Wolverine story where he's avenging people, he's killing people, he's mean, he's surly, he's drinking beer. Actually, he drinks soda pop. He's done drinking beer now. If you've read Old Man Logan before, he doesn't do that anymore. He comes across an Ultron head. He has to find out about it. He goes to see Emma, the White Queen, to talk to her. You learn some information. You find out that this version of Old Man Logan is actually set in Battleworld because they talk about Doom, they talk about the Thors, and then at the end he decides to go climb the shield wall to go over because that's where Ultrons are from, as we know from the first book. So it's tied in. It's great. The art's fantastic. And it's just a good Wolverine story. Wolverine's been dead for like 6 months. So this is kind of a nice book to have of him doing stuff. And he's just being Wolverine. It's the reason why I like that character. Infinity Gauntlet. Cool book, man. This book, it's not wham bam, thank you ma'am, there's crazy stuff going on. This is a book, it's setting up a new family, a new group of people. It's about these people who are in the ruins of Nova, or Nova Prime, I believe. And in there's bugs, and it's just a horrible place to be. They're trying to survive. It's kind of like Walking Dead. They're just trying to get by. This family's mom left to join the Nova Corps. She never came back. And so they're barely surviving. They're like getting killed by these bugs. The youngest daughter finds a gem. It's a blue gem. Crazy stuff happens. That's clearly a part of the Infinity Gauntlet. And then their mom comes back. She's in a Nova costume. So we have a new member of the Nova Corps. And then, of course, Thanos just kind of strolls in. He's got a gem in his hand. He's like, well, I'm back. I'm working on the Gauntlet. So I don't know what it has to do with Secret Wars, because we know that Thanos just showed up on the second raft in the Secret Wars thing. So I don't know if this is the same Thanos or not. It could be the same Thanos. He could have like strolled over, because it's a huge world. It's all a self-contained world. So, man, Infinity Gauntlet, I like it's developing these new characters. It's predictable, but it's still like this is, going to be a good read. I'm looking forward to more Infinity Gauntlet. Inhumans Adeline Rises was a great, great read. Obviously, Charles Soule is kind of taking on the mantle of being Inhumans guy, and he's got to make them work because they're really pushing the Inhumans over the next 2 years, I imagine. And so this one has fan-flippin-tastic art, and it is just a really interesting story. Matt Murdock with the red eye band from 1602 makes an appearance. It doesn't make any sense, but whatever. I love that we get to see, if you know a lot about Marvel, you're going to see these characters that come up that you've read in other stories, and it's like, what is this character doing here? And so that's really neat. And if you don't know who those characters are, you're just going to be like, who is this character? What's going on here? Is this something that, I don't know if you're an insider or an outsider, but what's really cool is it's its own, they're trying to do their own type of story. So Inhumans, Medusa is in charge of New Adeline, I think she's in charge of New Adeline. And she's the Baroness there, and she's kind of in charge of stuff going on. Doom tasks her to do a job, and she has sent someone out. And at the end, someone goes to the Quiet Room. The Quiet Room is a place where there's all these like cool heroes and villains and great characters. And there's a weird bartender that kind of his name is Blackagar, who, if you know who Blackagar is, that's actually Black Bolt. So Black Bolt's come up in this world. In this particular setting, he's not the most powerful guy anymore. He's actually just a bartender. So who knows? Like, Inhumans, lots of great questions, lots of weird stuff. Doom makes an appearance, talks, love Doom, love seeing Doom in a comic book right now. It kind of reminds me of when they did Dark Reign and you saw Harry Osborn. I wanted to see Harry Osborn every issue. He's the antagonist. He was the Darth Vader of that series. Last book here, Where Monsters Dwell by Garth Ennis. Oh my goodness. So this book has, I don't know if it has anything to do with anything going on, but Garth Ennis is such a great writer, and the art in here is great. It's perfect for the story. It's a pulp story. We meet a guy, I think his name is Chris or Thomas, or I'm just going to try to remember real quick. His name is Kaufman. Kaufman is like, he's an adventurer. He knocks up this princess lady, and he like sneaks out the back door, flies out of his plane. He's like, I'm never going back. He gets his plane fixed. He runs into this British girl. She needs flight safe passage to a place. They go into an area where there's a storm. Crazy stuff happens, and they get stranded. And then you find out that the woman that he's taken passage, she's very, very British, and there's more to her than meets the eye. Could it be Agent Carter? Who knows? We're going to have to find out in later issues. But just a fun story. Garth Ennis just knows how to write. He knows how to write, man. Like, he's a great writer. And even though he doesn't like superhero books, which is why it isn't tied into the super mythos, I'm hoping it's going to cut back to that. But man, what a great book. If you get Where Monsters Dwell, I think it's just, this is why it's my number one. This is my last pick this week. I think it's actually just a well-written story. If you go by any comic shop, there's going to be a Secret Wars previews. These are free. if you are like, what's going on with Secret Wars? What kind of art can we see? What kind of stuff? I mean, X-Men 92, you can just see the schlock and the 90s schlock. So really, get this. This will give you an idea of maybe where you want to go. But in the Secret Wars Journal, you're going to hear me talk about all these books and have some of my thoughts. At first, it's going to be a lot of number ones. And then we'll see if I'll have time to talk about things. These videos take a longer time than I thought they would. So thanks for tuning in. If you like any of these books, please come by 1730 West Eisenhower here in Loveland, Colorado, or support your own local comic book shop and tell them that you want some Secret Wars books. Put them on your hold files. Give your shop a heads up, because it's going to be very hard to order these books down the road, like these next issues. So find the issue ones, tell them that you want more, and that'll give them a better idea of getting you what you want and helping your local comic book store out. I'm Jason. Thanks for tuning in.